podcast.
You can go slow. A Kids Co.
A Kids Co.
This show was brought to you by a Kids Co.
Hey, welcome to Better Grownups. I'm Jelani Memory, founder of a Kids Co. And this is a parenting podcast all about how to be a better grownup. This week, I'm chatting with Christie Pitts, general partner of Backstage Capital. She's an incredible VC investing specifically in companies led by underrepresented founders. That's women, people of color, and LGBTQ folks. She's also a mother of two. And we get into the expectations of mothers who work, and that somehow they're not only supposed to, manage the entire household, get the job done at work, and do it all perfectly. And we talk about the fact that no matter how much mothers juggle, they can never quite hit that imaginary bar that society puts on them. Christie also helps me investigate my own shortcomings, managing my household with my wife, and some tips on how to begin dismantling sexism and patriarchy that we see around us every day. We also explore how she navigates such a male-dominated industry that is VC, and how she hopes her kids grow up to believe they can belong anywhere. Christie is actually an investor in the company that makes this podcast, A Kids Co. So that kind of makes Christie my boss. Honestly, after this interview, I couldn't think of a better boss to have. All right, Christie Pitts, let's get into it. Christie Pitts, welcome to Better Grownups.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So you're a venture capitalist, you're a mom. Tell us your story.
Okay, so I am a venture capitalist. I'm an investor at a venture firm called Backstage Capital. We have invested in a Kids Co. So yes, thank you for letting us be part of your journey. And 199 other companies led by women, people of color, and LGBTQ founders. And really our position is that just because a founder is underestimated doesn't mean that that is, a negative indication in any way, shape, or form. But really, it's an opportunity to generate incredible financial return. And so that's what we're doing. We're raising money, raising capital and investing that capital into incredible founders like you.
Oh, that's wonderful. So before we started, I just told you, I just want to just dive right into ripping apart the patriarchy and the imbalance of what's expected of men and women when they're parents in the workplace. And so I kind of want to just get right into it. You are in a heavily male-dominated field that is venture capital, sort of classically the Patagonia vested, San Francisco living, Silicon Valley VC, right? Who just drinks coffee all day and meets with founders and cuts the $300 million checks, to other white male founders who went to Stanford. The tropes are the tropes are a lot true. But, how are you navigating it? How did you get into it? What do people get wrong about VC? And why, when we see these tropes, are you not the face that we see when we think of VC?
Okay, so the last question, why am I not the face of VC? Let's change that. But also, I should also say as a white woman, I shouldn't be the face of VC. So I think that the tropes exist for a reason, like you said. A majority of VCs went to two schools, Harvard and Stanford. 92%, it's either 91 or 92% of check writing partners at VC firms are men. And the majority of those are white men. And they invest in white men. So, I got into VC through an untraditional path, which I think you have to do if you don't fit that archetype. I didn't go to Harvard or Stanford. In fact, I'm a proud graduate of the University of Phoenix. And I think the only person in venture capital that went to University of Phoenix. So if there are any other Phoenix Rising alum, please let me know. But actually, it's kind of a cool story. So I worked at Verizon for 13 years. I started as a part-time customer service rep in a store because I was at a state school doing my undergrad. I couldn't afford my cell phone bill and I needed a discount. And so I started there and I left through the Verizon Ventures team where we were deploying $100 million a year into companies that were strategic to Verizon's key interests. And I was so My timing could not have been better. I was so lucky and I worked so hard while there. And I had, I worked my way up into an executive position overseeing marketing and sales ops for a $4 billion P&L. And that's what led me into making investments or being on the Verizon Ventures team. And then from Verizon, I came over and joined Backstage, joined Arlen as her partner.
How have you found I think navigating on the founder side of things, like, is it refreshing when founders run into you and they go, oh, finally, like somebody who looks like me or understands me or isn't that same trope? Is it meaningful? Does it matter?
Yes, but I would say it's more infuriating for me, at least. It's fuel that keeps me going because the founder journey is such a lonely one, but especially when you're fundraising, it's very lonely because it's just you usually. Even if you have a co-founder, you're still, the CEO is usually the one that's leading the fundraising efforts. And I think especially in venture, or at least I know venture, I'm in this industry, it's you and one other investor. And so you might hear over and over and over again the same poor, dumb questions and have to answer them over and over again. And the problem with that, the problem with systemic oppression really is what this is that the system makes you think the problem is with you when the problem is really with the system. So as a founder, it feels like I'm the problem. I'm not doing it right. Something's wrong with my deck. I'm not ambitious enough. I'm too ambitious. You get all this feedback. It's conflicting feedback. And so then I talk to the founder and the founder's like, wow, you get it. You get my business. And what's infuriating about that is that I shouldn't be the only one. It shouldn't be so hard to have that validating conversation, to get an investor on your side that believes in you and is willing to take a leap with you so that you can build.
So you're a rock star investor. And I think if you were on any other podcast, the question you get asked at this point is like, how do you do it as a mom? How do you balance it all? How do you do the work-life balance? What I really want you to talk about is what are the roadblocks? What are the presupposition? What are the biases that you have run into, continue to run into as a mom who works?
Yeah, I think so. I'm in a very privileged position to be just, for example, I have a nanny, right? And so just having a nanny, first and foremost, it's expensive. And a lot of people can't afford it or don't have access to do that, right? So I just want to highlight that, but also say that I have really experienced a lot of what is the bleak nature of being a mom in the workforce in this country specifically, in that you are held to an impossible standard. Society as moms expects moms to sacrifice ourselves and to be selfless for our children. And as an extension of that, we're supposed to sacrifice ourselves and be selfless for our husbands in our homes or our partners in our homes. And we are also supposed to be ambitious working people who are achieving in our careers. And there's so much just internal dialogue that is oppressive when it comes to this. It starts even before you get pregnant. Like before I had my son, I got asked on the regular whether or not I had kids and when I was having kids. And my husband was almost never asked that question. And then once you are pregnant, strangers make decisions for you without talking to you about it. Like, for example, the barista at the coffee shop serves you decaf coffee because they think that you're not supposed to be able to have caffeine. Your autonomy becomes limited as soon as it's clearly people understand that you're pregnant. And now in the US, it goes even beyond that. And it has gone beyond that, unfortunately, in that pregnant people are not allowed to exercise their autonomy over their body. That's been known. It's known now because of the Dobbs decision, but it's been the case for so many people who haven't had access to safe abortion care and safe reproductive care. So it's a dumpster fire.
And we're back. You're listening to Better Grownups and my conversation with Christie Pitts.
I have to say that if parenting and motherhood has taught me anything, it is that control is an illusion. And I learned that from a very physical place because with my pregnancies, I had a condition called hyperemesis gravidarum, which is essentially extreme morning sickness. And between the two kids, I've thrown up a total of 40 weeks. And it's like extreme and debilitating chronic terrible illness. So basically, I am really leaning into the fact that this is a roll of the dice. Like, I'm going to have these conversations with the kids. We're going to do some things differently than were done with me when I was growing up and that I saw done growing up. And we'll see what happens. But they are their own people. And hopefully, hopefully they'll be people that I'm proud of and people that I'm proud to know when they're adults. And I'm laying that foundation now, and we'll see what happens.
I mean, the work of a parent is so hard. And I think that's wise, this sort of idea of like, the illusion of control is like, you're not in control of anything. You just are sort of there to try and help and nudge along. And I think there's a freedom in that to go, I don't actually get to decide who my kids become. They are their own people, but I get to help them become maybe what they can become. And I can also get the hell out of the way to make sure I don't hamper that development and that growth. And, that's in contrast in some ways to what society will want to tell them to be, right? Or the way they should act, or where they belong or where they don't belong. I'm curious, as you think about your kids getting older, because both your kids are pretty young, does that scare you a little bit to sort of try and help them carve out those spaces to make sure that they feel like they belong?
It does scare me a little bit, but it also, for me, it feels that it's part of this kind of like stew of humanity and that they are loved unconditionally at home. They will always belong at home, right? And so they can they can walk out into the world knowing that they have that love and support from me, from their father, from the other family members that are in their lives. They will always belong here. I'm just going to be really transparent and real so my daughter's going to be a year in just a few weeks. And I've had postpartum depression since she was born. And part of that is just the amount of work and logistics of maintaining a household while also trying to maintain your sanity in your job is overwhelming. And I was overwhelmed this year. And it was really not until my husband, my mom, and my partners at work, Arlen and Brittany, came to me. All of them came to me and said, we're seeing something with you. And I was in this dark place. And I was able to come out of that. I have health insurance. I was able to get treatment for it. But a big part of that has just been recognizing that I need help. I have to ask for help. And I have to allow space for things for me not to be in control. Like, this whole concept of control is an illusion, like with the kids. Also, I'm not controlling dinner tonight. I have to create that and accept that it's a fallacy. It's a lie that I should have ever put myself in that position in the first place. And to be successful at work or to be a good mom is not to do everything, because it's impossible to do everything.
Well, I feel like what happens is it's not only you who has that belief about yourself, but everybody's colluding with you to sort of go, well, you got this, right? Like, you can have it all and you can balance it all. And surely you should be able to juggle all these things, because I don't know what the word is for it, but it almost seems baked into the system of how we think about parenthood is we just view moms as default in that position. And from what I hear you saying is that it's incredibly destructive to the life of the mom, because it's an impossible bar to meet.
Mm-hmm. And then you're always failing.
I find it actually in my everyday life, I am consistently praised as a dad for having 6 kids, this amazing blended family. Like, people will go, oh my gosh, that's so incredible. They'll literally say, that's incredible, Jelani. How do you do it? That's amazing. And they'll tell my wife, literally, what's wrong with you? Why would you do that? Why would you do that to yourself? Is there something wrong?
So you get to enjoy it. And she is
I get praised like I am super dad. And it's perceived as some literal, something's wrong with my wife for having chosen that. Are we trying to build a compound of kids? And it's the same people who offer that different perspective. And it's really about how that reflects back on me as a dad, and the fact that I just let that many kids be in my life, and how it reflects on her of going well, there's no way you can manage all those kids because they're totally your responsibility. And the unfairness of that, the sort of maliciousness of that, I find myself often wanting to call it out because it's so imbalanced and it's so well-meaning. And that even makes it just makes it come off even worse because it's such an unconscious perspective on what the role of my job is as a father and what her role is as a mother.
100%. That's a great example. And I think even if you think it's just so much has developed even in our society. So I'm looking, my cousin has kids and her kids are in elementary school and they do these crazy things like 100-day celebration. What is that? You go to school for 100 days and now we have a party? What is that? And why do the kids have to have a special outfit for it? And who bought that outfit? And who's tracking for the next week when it's Spirit Week or whatever? It's on the moms for the most part. And it's like this avalanche that's never ending. And it's getting worse. That's what's really, really I just saw this news last week that there's companies that are dropping their parental leave, their paid parental leave. They're reducing the number of weeks that they're providing. And there's now people in states like Texas and Oklahoma who cannot access abortion when they need it. And the thing about this is that when you focus, again, there's a parallel with what I do for work, right? Which is when women and people of color can't access capital. Well, who are women married to? Men and other women. Who's having an abortion? 60% of the time, people who already have kids. And those children may be girls or boys. This affects all of us in society. I love that you recognize the different messages that you and your partner get about your blended family, because in a way you're benefiting because you're getting praised, but you are also being negatively impacted by the fact that that's your partner and she gets those negative messages, right?
Yeah. Well, let's keep it super real. Once upon a time, I had this belief because my wife is you don't understand, Jelani. I have to think about my work and everything that's happening at home. And all those things are sitting on my mind all the time. And I just thought, oh, well, that's just you. That's how you feel and think about it. I'm just compartmentalizing and I'm not. And it's not that I care less about those things. I just turn off that part of my brain. And then when I'm engaged back at home, I'm here's the things that need to get done. And what I actually really realized through enough sort of a pressure campaign for my wife to go you should really investigate that thought, is that it's just that gender bias of what's expected of who. And for me, it was oh, well, I don't really have to think about it. What's happening for dinner? I don't know. We'll just figure it out. And it's my wife knows, well, yeah, I bought food a week ago so that you can just figure it out.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
And I think it's going I've gotten in this groove. And then you start telling yourself all sorts of things oh, well, I'm the breadwinner. And so it's really we couldn't afford this lifestyle unless and you start building up these justifications. And then ultimately it just comes back to going either we're going to share an equal load, genuinely mental, physical, emotional load when it comes to this household and this family, or I'm going to be that jerk dude that just goes that's your job, let me do the thing that I'm supposed to do as a dad, get off my back. And even still, I think that those defaults, they're challenging not to fall back into because of society, because of those unconscious bias, because of the gender imbalance, because of what's expected of the different roles within a household.
Yeah. I mean, you're 100% right. And I think the thing is that it's dynamic. So having the conversation puts you far in the upper echelon because you're recognizing that there's this imbalance, but then the mental load shifts. So right now, my kids don't go to school. We have a nanny. My kids are really little, but they're going to go to school. And when they go, I heard a rumor that they're going to have to eat lunch. So allegedly they're going to want to get fed every day. Somebody told me that. So who's going to pack it? Who's going to pack lunch? Who's going to make sure that it's a clean, they are taking lunch in a clean thing like a lunchbox? Who's going to source that thing? What about if other kids in our class have allergies? Who's going to do all of that thought? And it's a daily thing, right? And then maybe one of them will do an extracurricular, and then that comes with its own gear. And so the kid has to get there, and then they have to get picked up, and all of the things. And orchestrating it is work. And you can choose to be blind to that, but then you're choosing to be blind to what your partner is, the reality your partner lives. And I think that is destructive to the relationship in the long term.
It's Better Grownups, a parenting podcast all about how to be a better grown-up. And you're listening to my conversation with Christie Pitts. And you're using the operative word, partner, who lets their partner just do all the work and then takes credit for it. That's just fundamentally wrong. And what I've learned on my journey of not just being a husband, but a father is learning how to do better, be better, right? This is the title of the podcast, Better Grownups, is I actually need to be getting better at this, because I can't just assume I'm good at this and I'm just crushing it, especially when the people around me are going, you're not crushing it actually, Jelani, you could be doing a better job, right? And especially my wife never wants to take out the trash, and I'm totally cool to do that. She also never wants to do the dishes. And it took me a while to just go oh, I should just do the dishes. I should just own that part of it, because I have no problem with doing the dishes. But I also need to understand when she wants the dishes done and needs them done is different than when my brain does, because she's also thinking in advance of all these. So just owning that mental load a little bit. Look, she still shoulders so much of it, but trying to embrace that so that when our kids need to get somewhere, they got to go do a school thing, they got soccer practice, get cleats, that sort of stuff, which we literally have to do today, is to be oh, I got that. I got that thing. You don't have to worry about that. I can think through all the steps required for that. And then what I find more often than not, especially in our household, is making sure that my wife knows that I'm thinking enough in advance that I got something, so that she doesn't have to worry about it. Otherwise, she'll worry about it and she'll go ahead and do that thing, get done. And I was oh yeah, I forgot about that. And it's so she's getting signaled, I must still think about this. Otherwise, my other husband will drop the ball on it, right?
And that's so hard, because the thing is if she reminded you, right? And so then you did it. And then so it's this feedback loop of oh, I had to remind him. And so, but then when I reminded him, he did it. And the problem is at least it's just speaking for myself, I also make mistakes. I might have forgotten too. But it's easier. Is it easier for me to forgive myself for a mistake than it is to blame my partner? This is where it really gets deep, because it's at the end of it, when your kids are grown and out of the house, do you want your partner to still like you? And if so, if you're allowing them to shoulder this load and you're refusing to see what they're doing, and that's the root cause. But there's going to be symptoms that are popping up in your relationship of their overwhelm and the challenges that they're having. But if you're allowing yourself to remain blind to it, then you have to accept the ramifications of that in the future, right?
Yeah. 100%. And I just want to put a pin in why this happens. These gender imbalances has everything to do with patriarchy, has everything to do with misogyny, has everything to do with the oppression of women's thoughts, feelings, ideas. This isn't quaint or cute or oh, isn't it funny that, these things they're actually really fundamentally serious, and the impacts, they ripple out in really dramatic ways. And I think one of the reasons why I care so deeply about investigating and navigating and doing better in these things is my kids are watching. They're watching all this stuff, and they're deciding their place in the world and where they belong based on how my wife and I do life and what we permit the other to do or do not permit based on what our preconceived sort of gender notions are of what should happen in a household or a relationship. And quite frankly, that scares me to death, right? I hope my kids grow up into fully formed adults and go, hey, that was messed up. And I go oh yeah, that was messed up. I want them to recognize that as opposed to adopting it and then sort of re-traumatizing for the next generation and the next generation.
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's where women are right now in this country. And I think that something that I'm just learning about, but I haven't learned a lot about yet, is it's happening, this like catalytic thing that's happening with moms and with women is happening on both sides of the aisle. You know, I think we're really in another movement. It's early days in another movement for women's liberation. There's going to be change, but it's just like, I can't even summarize my position on this because it's still so nascent for me. But I just feel like there's clearly change. There's so many of us that are fed up and we're not going to take it, but we're also exhausted by the patriarchy. We don't have time. We're staying up all night with our kids and then we're working all day at our jobs and then we're trying to like get it done and then it's bedtime and then we're exhausted. We fall into bed. And so sometimes I felt like patriarchy exists because of the physical demands of pregnancy. That was my initial theory. When I went through hyperemesis, I was like, oh, this is why we live in a patriarchal society. Because if half of the population is pregnant for like 15 years at a time, then of course they're going to be taken out of the decision-making because they can't physically participate because they're like physically held back, right? And now I think in part, these systems, the pressure and expectations on moms contribute because moms are too exhausted to stand up and say no and change. But now I think we have to, and there's a growing coalition of us that are, and it's happening on both sides. So we'll see what comes next because there are a lot of parallels with other political systems in our country that like moms represent that too.
Well, I hope you're right. And look, it'll be rad when that change comes. And I'll throw my hand up in the air and go, I'm just as complicit as anybody in upholding those systems. And, you know, growing up with a single mom, I hope those systems change because we all need them, and especially moms do. Christie, I could talk to you for forever about this. This is so good. I think we just keep diving into it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love it.
Awesome. Thanks again to Christie and to you for listening. You can check out Christie's interview series, Moms at Work, on LinkedIn. Take a look at the show notes for a link. And you can find Backstage Capital and the amazing companies Christie invests in at backstagecapital.com. And you can find Christie at I'm Christie Pitts on Twitter. Keep up with me at Jelani Memory on Twitter. I really would love to hear what you think of the show, questions you want answered, and guests you'd love to hear from. Just email us at listen@akidsco.com. Better Grownups is hosted by me, Jelani Memory. Matthew Winter, the one and only, is the producer on this episode, with additional production support from Chad Michael Snavely and the team at Sound On Studios. Explore our collection of over 80-plus books made to empower by visiting akidsco.com. There you'll also find our growing network of original podcasts for kids. No matter who they are, what their interests, or what big questions they're asking, we are making shows just for them. Find our shows on Apple Podcasts or wherever podcasts are found.